I think it's really crunch time for these negotiations because we're going into election season in Iran in a couple of weeks. And if we don't get a significant breakthrough in these negotiations, everything is likely to freeze. And then you could be facing much more challenging negotiations when you don't have President Rouhani, when you don't have Foreign Minister Javad Zarif, and you potentially have a hardline government in Iran who's unlikely to want to make the concessions that Biden is seeking. So I think that they have a limited window to try to get something accomplished. Otherwise, we could be looking at much more protracted negotiations and those sanctions restricted barrels not coming back.
Right? Right? I mean, at the end of the day, what leverage does the United States really have at this point?
That's such a great question because what we've seen in recent months is actually rising Iranian oil exports going into China. And it doesn't look like Iran has tremendous fear about actually, being stopped by, the US government. I mean, those barrels are rising into China. They're benefiting from rising prices, rising volume. And the question is, what is the economic leverage? Does a supreme leader think he has more time to sort of wait out the administration? And so I do think, again, I think it's a limited window. If they get a breakthrough in the next couple of weeks, I think we could be looking at, significant quantities hitting the market in the second half of the year. If there's no breakthrough, maybe those extra barrels don't come back till next year.
When you think about this a bit more broadly, it was really interesting over the weekend. I had a sit down with John Kerry, former U.S. Secretary of State, as you very well know, an architect of that original JCPOA. Yes. Now he's the climate czar, essentially, and he's really trying to sell the climate policy abroad. It's fascinating, isn't it? Because he came here to Abu Dhabi for a regional dialogue. This is a country that's investing heavily in renewables. We've seen Saudi Arabia making the same kinds of commitments in recent days. When you think about this with regards to oil, we know all of the oil in this part of the world is headed to Asian markets. Now the Chinese have said they're getting to net zero by 2060. How do you see this region, frankly, evolving in terms of their strategic importance for the United States? Because at the end of the day, they want commitments from the Biden team that if there are any more attacks, that U.S. troops will be here to defend the oil infrastructure.
I mean, Hadley, we've had this conversation for years. I mean, we saw it on September 14th, 2019, when you had that spectacular attack on Saudi Arabia's oil facilities. They temporarily lost half of their output. And overnight, it looked like we no longer had a Carter doctrine, that we were no longer committed to the defense of these, oil installations. And so I think this is a trend that's been happening, really since, the Obama administration. It was really accelerated with the American energy, resource development. And the key question is now, if you were to see, one of these attacks in Saudi Arabia, result in significant casualties, what would the position of the United States be? I mean, I think that is a real potential risk, is that you could have, something really significant happen on the security front. And the question is, what would the response be?